I'd been counting down the days to our Maldives trip, 2 tickets, 1 dream. Then 3 nights before departure, Ryan came home with that serious, business-first look. "Sam, I can't go," he said, rubbing his temples. "The company's merger hit a snag. I need to stay and fix it." I swallowed my disappointment. "Can't they handle it without you?" He sighed. "Not this time. You know how important this is for my career." I smiled weakly, trying to hide the sting. I told him I understood. But something about the way he avoided my eyes felt wrong. I brushed it off as overthinking and told myself he'd make it up to me later. The next morning at work, I got a message from my coworker, Jenna, who was on her honeymoon. She sent a picture of her husband lounging by the resort pool. The caption read, "Wish you were here." I smiled, until my eyes caught a familiar figure in the background. My heart stopped. It was Ryan. Same blue cap, same black wristwatch I'd given him on our anniversary. At first, I told myself it had to be someone else. But then I saw it, the small compass tattoo on his shoulder. The one we'd gotten together after college. It was him. No doubt. As I zoomed in, I noticed a woman next to him, laughing, her hand resting casually on his chest. She wore a red swimsuit. The kind I used to wear when we first started dating. I called him immediately, my heart pounding. "Hey," I said softly, "are you still at the office?" "Yeah," he answered, sounding tired. "It's been a long night." I could hear something in the background, soft waves, faint laughter, and the distinct echo of an ocean breeze. He was lying straight to me, without hesitation. I ended the call. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there in silence, realizing my marriage had ended before I even got the chance to save it. For 3 days, I said nothing. I went to work. Smiled through meetings. Responded to his busy texts with simple okays. When he finally came home, tanned and relaxed, holding a cheap souvenir keychain, I almost laughed. "How was the office?" I asked, folding laundry like it was any other day. He hesitated, then shrugged. "Exhausting. You wouldn't believe how much coffee I drank." I didn't respond. I just looked at him, really looked, and realized how small he suddenly seemed. The man I'd trusted had become a stranger. That night, while he slept soundly beside me, I opened my laptop and started researching something I'd never dared to before: solo travel. A month later, I booked a trip. Same destination. Same resort. But this time I was going alone. When I arrived, the air smelled like freedom. I walked along the same beach I'd seen in Jenna's photo, the same spot where he'd sat with that woman. Only now, it was mine. I ordered myself a drink, put on a red swimsuit, and took a picture. In it, I wasn't broken or betrayed. I was peaceful. Whole. Free. When I posted it, friends flooded my messages with love. Even Jenna texted, surprised. But I didn't care about anyone's reaction. That trip wasn't revenge. It was released. I finally understood something Ryan never did: peace isn't something you find in another person. It's something you choose for yourself. When I came back from the Maldives, something inside me had shifted. My house felt smaller, quieter, not because Ryan was there, but because I wasn't filling the space with hope anymore. He tried to pretend everything was normal. "You look different," he said one morning. "Tanned." "Happy." "I am," I replied simply. And for the first time, I meant it. I didn't confront him. I didn't need to. The truth was already mine, and it had freed me. I started sleeping on the far edge of the bed, my body facing the window instead of him. In the mornings, I made coffee just for one. Ryan noticed the change but couldn't name it. He started overcompensating, bringing me flowers, planning date nights, asking about my day like he was reading from a script. But I had stopped craving the performance of love. What I wanted now was peace. I spent more time with myself, journaling, meditating, taking long walks after work. The silence that used to suffocate me now felt like home. He asked one night, "Are we okay?" I smiled gently. "We will be," I said. But deep down, I knew we wouldn't be. I would be. I wrote a letter I never planned to send. In it, I told him everything that I knew about the resort, about the woman in red, about every lie he'd spoken while looking me in the eye. Writing it was like exhaling after years of holding my breath. I didn't write it to hurt him. I wrote it to heal myself. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in a drawer, and walked away. Some truths don't need an audience, they just need acknowledgement. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. It wasn't forgiveness. It was freedom. I applied for a position abroad. Something I'd always dreamed about but never dared to do because it wasn't the right time for us. When I got the offer, I accepted it without hesitation. Ryan was stunned. "You're just leaving?" "I'm not leaving," I said softly. "I'm starting." I packed lightly, clothes, books, and the red swimsuit that had become my quiet symbol of courage. I left behind everything that reminded me of waiting for someone who never showed up. When I closed the door behind me, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like stepping into sunlight after years of rain. Life abroad was slow, beautiful, and mine. I rented a small apartment overlooking the ocean, started journaling daily, and built a circle of new friends who didn't know my past, just my present. Sometimes I'd wake up to a memory of him, his laugh, his cologne, the way he used to reach for my hand without thinking. It would flicker through me like a soft ache, then fade. But the more I painted, the more I remembered who I was before I became someone's wife. My small apartment slowly filled with canvases, emotions translated into brushstrokes. A friend visited and said, "You should sell these." I laughed. "They're just for me." But maybe that was the point, doing something just for me. For the first time in years, my world felt colorful again. An envelope arrived one morning. No return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. Inside was a letter. "You didn't deserve how I treated you." I thought I was chasing success, but I was running from myself. I see that now. I read it once. I folded it. Placed it inside a drawer, not to keep, not to cherish, just to close a door properly. Forgiveness doesn't always sound like it's okay. Sometimes, it's silence and a steady heartbeat. Months later, my friend convinced me to display my paintings in a local exhibit. I almost said no, but something inside whispered, "Why not?" The night of the opening, people gathered around my pieces, pointing, talking, feeling. A woman approached me and said, "Your work feels like healing." I smiled softly. That's exactly what it is. As the night went on, I realized I didn't need to be seen through someone else's eyes anymore. I was finally my own reflection. It happened by accident. A business conference in another city. Ryan was there, looking older, quieter. He saw me before I saw him. When our eyes met, he gave a small, hesitant smile. I nodded, polite, detached. There was no anger left in me, only distance. He tried to start a conversation, but someone called my name, a client, a friend, and I turned away. That moment wasn't painful. It was proof of growth. I had already said everything that needed to be said, by living well. Later that night, back in my hotel room, I stood by the window, looking down at the city lights. I realized that healing hadn't been about forgetting him, it was about remembering me. I wasn't the wife waiting for calls anymore. I wasn't the woman who needed to prove she'd been wronged. I was simply free. I whispered a small thank you to the universe, not for what I lost, but for what I found. Myself. It began quietly, a friendship that grew from shared laughter and long conversations. Daniel wasn't loud, charming, or showy. He listened. He didn't fill silence, he made it comfortable. One evening, as we walked by the pier, he said, "You look like someone who's finally breathing." I smiled. That's because I am. This time, love didn't feel like fire or thunder. It felt like sunlight through open windows, gentle, real, and steady. Months later, a wedding invitation arrived in my inbox, a mutual friend from old life. Ryan would be there. I almost declined, but something in me whispered, "You're ready." At the wedding, laughter filled the air, soft music played, and there he was, sitting alone, scanning the room. He looked at me once, eyes widening with quiet surprise. I smiled politely, raised my glass, then turned back to my table, where Daniel was waiting, his hand resting easily over mine. And in that instant, I knew I was completely free. After the wedding, I walked outside for some air. The night sky stretched wide and endless. I thought about the woman who once begged for love from a distracted man. And the woman who stood here now, content, whole, untethered. Life doesn't always give you the closure you imagine. Sometimes it gives you something better, peace that doesn't need permission. As I got into the car, I whispered to myself. You made it out, and you made it through. My second art show opened that spring, this time in a gallery that had once felt far beyond my reach. People called my work transformative. Someone even offered to buy the entire collection. But one painting, the first one I ever made after leaving Ryan, I kept for myself. It was called Resurface. A woman standing on a shoreline, looking at the horizon, not the storm behind her. That painting wasn't for sale. It was my reminder of everything I survived. Years later, I found myself back at the same resort where the truth once broke me. The same turquoise ocean, the same sound of waves, only this time, there was no pain in the view. I sat on the sand with Daniel beside me, our fingers entwined. He said softly, "Have you ever thought about what you'd change?" I smiled. Nothing. Every wrong turn led me here. And for the first time, I realized my story was never about betrayal, it was about becoming. Because sometimes, peace is the sweetest revenge of all.